Give us your breakdown on what happened in the Couture Nogueira fight. Did you think that says that Nogueira is back after your loss? And I don't know. One of my observations was maybe Randy is just a little too small to survive at 220.
Yeah, I think the biggest. I know a lot of things have been said about Nogueira having some bad staph infection when we fought each other. Things like that kind of bug me, just for the reason being that all fighters have injuries and setbacks in every camp leading up to every fight. I've yet to speak to anybody in the 8 or 9 years I've been in the UFC now that has ever walked into a fight feeling 100% and feeling phenomenal and feeling great. Usually every fighter says that before fights, because obviously we lie, and after the fights you find out a little bit of the truth. But the Nogueira fight, really, honestly, I didn't see anything else with Nogueira that would lead me to believe that the two of us fought again would be any different. Randy hit him quite a bit. The only difference is that Randy weighs 220. Randy should be a light heavyweight. I think that if it had been, if Randy was a 250-pound guy, a lot of those shots would have put Nogueira on the ground. That was the difference. When Nogueira landed shots on Randy, he didn't just score shots. It dropped Randy. So, that was the basic difference I saw in the fight. I just saw a weight difference of 30 pounds, where it's like, oh, okay, well, there's a guy who's a legitimate heavyweight and a guy who's in between heavyweights.
And I did think Nog, once it went to the ground, was the better fighter on the ground. When he had top control, he was able to take advantage of it and get to better position. I thought he did a good job of defending himself when he was on the bottom too.
Yeah, no, he did a good job from the closed guard. Randy's very much of a pain in the butt for anybody, to have you inside his guard and stuff. I think, another thing that was pointed out, they were like, oh, it was a phenomenal sweep that Nogueira did. I was watching the fight, and I looked to me that Randy's base gave out for a second, and Nogueira felt him fall over to Nogueira's left side to Randy's right, and he just rolled with him. I see that happen in a fight all the time. It's just taking advantage of an opportunity that your opponent presented you. You didn't really do anything. You just kind of took advantage of a mistake on Randy's part. His balance gave out. That's what the sweep was. But yeah, on the ground, you've seen that Nogueira went for quite a few submissions attempts. But the Nogueira that fought Randy is the same Nogueira. That's why when a lot of people are saying he's over the hill, I don't think so. I think that's the same guy. I really didn't do anything different to Nogueira than Tim did. Tim Silva for 3 rounds dropped him several times, outboxed him. The only difference is that Tim didn't have the discipline not to make a mistake and jump into his guard until he was finished. I dropped Nogueira several times, and I could look at him and say, no, he's not ready to go yet. I'm not going to jump into this guy's guard. He makes a living that way. Harry dropped him. His only mistake was that he did have him out, and he pulled back when he should have just jumped in and threw a few more punches and finished him. That's just the nature of Nogueira's fighting style. He's always, in almost every fight, takes a lot of abuse. So, I still think that's going to lead to be a problematic issue for him when he leads on, to fight other heavyweights. I'm like, ugh, he doesn't move his head. He takes a lot of abuse on the chin. And that worked in Pride when you had guys that, like a Crow Cop who's, 225, but now we got Shane Carwin and, Brock Lesnar, and you got some heavyweights that are cutting to make 265. I don't see how you're going to sit there and make a living off your chin. No one has a chin good enough to survive that onslaught.
Frank MIR with us, former UFC heavyweight champ. Steve and Dave here on a Monday, wrapping up UFC 102. So it came out before the fight. Dana White brought it up a lot about the injuries against you for Nogueira. It came out after the fight with Joe Rogan. Now, you sound like you're irked because they're essentially downgrading your victory over Big Nog. So who are you mad at most, White, Nog, or Joe Rogan?
Well, I understand where they're coming from, and they got to maybe sell the fact that, the reason why you want to tune in and watch this fight. I never think you have to take away from, make excuses for a guy's loss. Everybody in the UFC, we've all lost to each other. Everybody loses fights. Lyoto Machida is the only guy I know that's undefeated, and everybody else, every other champion I know has losses on his record. And obviously there's always justifications for why a person can lose. It seems like they're really hammering it down everybody's throat that was not really him, not him, not him. And when I watch the fight, I'm like, really? What is he doing any different to me that he didn't do to other people? He got dropped. He doesn't move his head. He's not really that fast, quick of an athlete. His reaction time is slow. That's why it kind of annoyed me. I'm like, wow. It's funny. It's like if I go and slap my wife and say, I'm not meaning to beat you. I don't like to do this, and then I slap you anyway. So it's like, it's not an excuse but I almost died from staph infection. It's like, well, no, you can't say I'm not making an excuse and then make an excuse as you're saying it. You know, it's like a guy, goes up and bugs you and says, hey, I hate to bug you. Then why are you doing it? And don't bug me. I don't understand that terminology. Just because you say that, I hate doing this, but I'm going to do it. I hate making excuses, but here they are. I'm not doing it, but I am. It's like, well, then don't make excuses if you don't want to make excuses.
Well,
say, hey, wasn't my night.
Yeah.
Shit happens and over with.
You filled the same role. We're talking to Frank MIR on WEC that Rogan has for years on UFC. Did you think he did something wrong in the octagon when he was talking to Nogueira? You know what? I didn't get to watch the broadcast because I was cage side covering it. Was he making excuses or making your win look bad even during the fight?
I thought so. That kind of obviously, I'm going to take it more personal. Obviously, I'm looking at it from my point of view. So obviously I take it more. It's like, wow, I did what it took to win the fight. Everybody has excuses. You lose. You make an improvement. You say, hey, it's not my day. At the end of the day, you might, I don't understand that. Like against Brock, I lost the last fight. I mean, I know he probably didn't have the most perfect training camp. Obviously, I have problems with my training camps. All of us can point to injuries and problems, but at the end of the day, I don't think fans honestly want to hear that. It's like, look, we're all warriors. We're supposed to go in there and go to battle, but at the end of the day, it's like, well, I had a splinter in my left foot. My wife yelled at me the other day, so I missed practice, and that's why I'm giving you a subpar performance. I don't think, in general, fans ever want to see athletes do that. It's like, look, it happens. I need to improve. I mean, and it's not like I'm really speaking from just, a quarterback, armchair quarterback. In my last fight with Brock, he got me. I could sit there and point at different things that could have led to the outcome being different. At the end of the day, I'm not going to take nothing away from him. He took advantage of a position. He beat me up. I need to get in the gym and figure out how to make sure that doesn't happen again.
I don't think they're meaning to discredit what the winner did, but they want to excuse what the loser did or what they did.
Yeah, usually we say it once or twice. I think it's just the repetitive beating it down our throats. That was what was starting to get annoying. Like, I've heard it, okay, all right, good, he had staph infection. And then I hear it again from Dana White, hey, he had staph infection, almost died. Then I heard it 15 times during the broadcast, staph infection, this is the real Nogueira. Staph infection, this is the real Nogueira. After a while, it's like, okay, guys, I get it. He sucked when I beat him. It was a pathetic experience. That was his twin brother that really was just risen from the dead. I didn't beat Nogueira. I got it, man. I got it. I figured it out, all right? I'm over it. I just think that it was just the constant berattlement of it over and over again. It's like, okay, guys, how many times is enough?
Frank MIR is with us. We're wrapping up UFC 102. Minotaur Nogueira wins against Couture. So, most fight fans kind of, and the media too, remember what we saw most recently. So does it irk you that a lot of us are now going to say, we want to see Big Nog against Lesnar?
No, why would that irk me?
Well, ahead of you. Should you get a rematch before Nogueira gets in there against Lesnar?
He's coming off of a win, and I got to come off of a win. If Nogueira wants to go up there, I mean, honestly, I don't think he'll do very well against Brock.
I think Brock's, obviously evolved a little bit. He's a big, powerful athlete. And when he threw his right hand at me, I moved my head. That's how come I didn't get knocked out on my feet. If you watch the beginning of the second round, I slipped his punch. I have no daydreams that I can take shot after shot from him and recover. If Nogueira he stands up with him, I just don't see it as a good matchup for Nogueira. He's going to stand in front of Brock. Brock's going to throw the right hand from hell. Nogueira doesn't really move his head. He's going to take it on the chin and fall down. Brock has a pretty intelligent training camp. He's going to sit there and wave Nogueira back up, and Nogueira's never going to get on top of Brock. It would be, his Christmas gift if he could take Brock down. Which is,
Nogueira's never been known as a takedown artist. At best, he might pull guard, and I think Brock is pretty smart about just stalling out from that position and keeping heavy and long. And I just don't see that as a, in the past, Nogueira fought in Pride. He fought a lot of individuals and took a ton of abuse. They're not going to allow that kind of abuse to occur here in America. They're not going to let him look like he's on the brink of death and not stop the fight.
Right.
Those fights, if we look back on now, would have been stopped that Nogueira fought in. If he fights Brock lands 5 good shots in a row from coming from the ceiling down. If Nogueira survives them and is flailing around, they're just going to stop the fight.